Alright everyone, today I want to show you how to do a monohybrid cross. That's a cross between a male and a female where we consider only one trait. So by the end of this video, you should be able to use a Punnett square to predict the probability of a genotype and a phenotype based on a cross between individuals considering only one trait. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Here is a karyotype. We discussed this in a previous video, and if you'll remember, you see pairs of chromosomes. So here's the first pair of chromosomes. Here is the second pair of chromosomes. Here is the third pair, and so on. And the reason we call it a pair is because there's two chromosomes. One of them came from your dad, so this one would have come from dad. And then the other one came from mom. So this one came from mom. And that's how it is for all 23 pairs of chromosomes. One of them comes from dad, one of them comes from mom. Now, let's consider just one pair of chromosomes. Okay, we're going to look at chromosome 5. So I've zoomed in on chromosome number 5. And when we do that, a section of chromosome number 5, one section of it that I've shaded in here, okay, that would be considered an allele. So an allele is just a certain form of a gene. So you can have a gene that codes for hair color, for example. And there's different types of hair color, right? So you have brown hair, you have blonde hair, you even have red hair. I'm not considering that one here. For now, I'm just considering brown and blonde. Okay, so there's a gene that can code for hair color. If you have a certain form of that gene, then you'll get brown hair. If you have a different form of that gene, you'll have blonde hair. So the different forms of the gene we call alleles. Okay? And these alleles are just little sections of the chromosome, like I've shaded in the picture here. Okay, just little sections of it. So let's notice a couple things that I've written down here. So in this case, brown hair is what we call dominant. Okay, and dominant, anytime that you have a dominant allele, you write it as a capital letter. So that's why I've written a capital B. And what dominant means is as long as you have that allele, as long as you have a big B or a capital B, then you will have the trait. You will have brown hair automatically, as long as you have a big B. Now, a lowercase letter we say is recessive. Okay, so in this case, blonde hair is recessive. And what that means for it to be recessive is it takes two alleles, two of them, to see that trait. So in order for you to have blonde hair, you would have to have two little b's. Okay, or two lowercase b's. You'd have to have an allele from dad that was a little b, and an allele from mom that was a little b, if it's recessive. Okay, so this combination of alleles, where we're looking at little b, for example, that combination is what we call a genotype. That's what this word is right here, genotype. So when you put the allele that you got from mom with the allele that you got from dad, when you put them together, that combination we call a genotype. Okay, and based on our options up here, big B and little b, there are only 3 combinations that are possible. Big B, big B, big B, or little b. Okay? You may be thinking, well, what about little b, big B? But there's a rule to remember, and that is you always write the capital letter first. So you always write that capital letter first, so we can't write little b, big B. That's not one of the options. So we only got 3 possibilities for the genotype: big B, big B, big B, or little b, little b. When the 2 letters are the same, so uppercase, uppercase, then we would call that homozygous dominant. Okay? Homo just means same. Okay? Now look down here. Lowercase, lowercase. 2 of the same letters. So it would also be homozygous because the 2 letters are the same. They're both lowercase. But in this case, it would be recessive. So it would, lowercase, lowercase would be homozygous recessive. Now if the 2 letters are different, if one of them is uppercase and one of them is lowercase, then we say that that is a heterozygous genotype. All right? Now again, these alleles code for certain traits. So since we have an uppercase B, remember, since it's dominant, we only need 1. You're going to see brown hair. This person with this genotype, big B, I'll write it over here so you can see it. So if we had a person who had big B, then they would have brown hair. What about a person who had big B, little b? This person would be heterozygous. As long as they have an uppercase B, they have the dominant allele, so they're going to have brown hair. What about a person who has 2 lowercase b's? Well, in that case, since they have 2 lowercase b's, they're going to have blonde hair. If they would have had 1 big B, then they would have automatically had brown hair. All right, so let's practice this really fast. So, I think I forgot to say, phenotype is just the physical characteristic. So when I was telling you what the hair color was, that's a physical characteristic that you can see. So keep this distinction in mind between genotype and phenotype. Okay, genotype is the combination of alleles, and then phenotype is going to be the physical characteristic or the physical trait that you see. All right, so now let's do this practice problem together. Say we have a heterozygous male. Remember, hetero means different. Okay, we have a heterozygous male and a heterozygous female. And we want to know what's the probability that their child will have blonde hair. Okay, so the way that we can do that, first let's write the male on the left here, and let's write the female at the top of this box. This box in this picture, we call that a Punnett square. I'll write it down at the bottom if you want. Punnett square. And this is going to show us the possibilities that these 2 individuals, what kind of offspring they can have together. Okay, so each box that you see, like this box right here, this would be one of their kids. Okay, another box would be a different kid that they could have together. Another box would be another kid that they could have together. And then the last one, they could have another kid together. So they can have 4 possible types of kids. Now, what goes in the boxes? So, since this is a heterozygous male, hetero means different. So he would have an uppercase letter and a lowercase letter. So I'm going to write his uppercase letter right here. This is the allele for brown hair. And I'm going to write the lowercase letter here. This is the allele for blonde hair. Okay? Same thing we can do with the female. Okay, the female, she is heterozygous as well, so she has an uppercase letter. So she has the allele for brown hair. She also has a lowercase letter. which is the allele for blonde hair. So then we are just going to take the female's letters and put them in these boxes, moving straight down. So the capital B we put right here, the capital B we put right here. Do the same thing with the lowercase b. Okay, put it right there. Now, let's do the same thing with the male now. Okay, so I'm going to try and clean this up a little. Okay, now let's do the same thing with the male. So we're going to take his capital B and put it in both boxes. Remember, the capital letter always goes first. And then we're going to take this little b and put it in both boxes. Okay, and I'll clean that up. And so now you can see that we have 4 boxes filled in. 3 of them, these 3 boxes here, have a capital B. And as long as they have a capital B, since that's the dominant trait, these children will have brown hair. So this child would have brown hair, this child would have brown hair, and this child would have brown hair. This last child down here only has lowercase b's. So this child would have blonde hair. Okay, and so there are 4 possible types of hair color our children could have. And I asked in the question, what's the probability of having a child with blonde hair for this couple? So only 1 out of the 4 kids total could have blonde hair. And 1 out of 4 is 25%. So you would say there's a 25% chance that they could have a child with blonde hair. Okay? Each box is worth 25%, if that helps you remember. Each one of these boxes is worth 25%. So if I had asked the question differently, if I said, what's the chances that they will have a child with brown hair, then you would just add up 25 plus 25 plus 25. And so they would have a 75% chance of having a child with brown hair. All right, that's it.